Hello and welcome. You're watching Money, Money, Money. I'm Sumaira Abdi. Well, we've always heard that the journey is more important to the traveler than the ultimate destination. Well, I've always enjoyed traveling more than just getting somewhere, and so it is for your financial goals as well. How and where you invest matters more than the mere act of investing. Not just that, we need to also spare a thought to what we should be investing in, and that is or how we achieve our goals. Well, very not. Feroz Aziz of Anand Rathi Private Wealth Management is here, and today he intends to dispel the myth that age and risk are inversely proportional. Hi Feroz, thanks very much for coming in. And also with us today we have Preeti and Vinod Rao and also Sabah Iqbal. Thanks so much guys to all of you for coming here. But Feroz, before we get started, I want to actually talk a little bit about goals. Are goals really that important? Is it not enough that I just have money in my kitty to use as I please?
I think goals are very important. Why is goal very important? Because it gives you purpose to the work you do, to the money you earn, right? Because money by itself doesn't mean anything. Its value is derived out of where it is used. So I think goals is a very, very important component of the first step, or trying to define what you're earning for and where you're going to spend it, because it just gives more meaning.
Feroz, just a question is that how do I know that I've not missed any of my goals? Like I have to have certain number of goals and certain types of goals. How do we know that we have not missed any of them, or something if new goal comes up in between after we have started our journey in terms of financial planning?
See, goal is something which is a very personal aspect of one's life, right? I think it requires more attention, more thought than what we human beings actually spend on it. For the fact that you have to derive your goals from the life you aspire to have. Generally, people have this misconceptions, and they actually think goal and responsibilities are one and the same. Right. Responsibility is a subset of a goal, right? You might have a goal which could be, I want to do a world tour. Is that a responsibility? No, it is not. But getting your child married, getting your child educated, retiring for yourself and having enough corpus to retire, those are all responsibilities, because you will have a spouse to take care of if she's not working. So those are responsibilities. There are two portions to it. One is, a goal has one portion which is responsibility, the other is aspirational items. So dear to life and aspirational. So segregate them and put in enough thought to have all of them covered. You need to spend days to actually arrive at the goals, which people generally don't, and they go as life goes along. So
how do I know that how much amount should I put for that goal? And do I have to change that?
First, once you've listed down all your goals, my responsibilities, my aspirations, if you've made it very exhaustive, now comes the question of how much money would I need to meet all of them, and is there a derived strategy to actually meet them? So now, like valid question saying that how do I put a monetary value to each of my goals? How do I know what a world tour will cost me if I want to do it 10 years later? So the most important aspect of goal setting and then trying to monetize it and actually have a money value to it is inflation. And inflation, price rises actually keep pushing your goals farther and farther. Let's assume if you have to go to a world tour today and it would cost 1 lakh rupee or 2 lakh rupees, let's assume 2 lakh rupees per head. For a couple it will cost you 4 lakh rupees. Now you say that I don't have the 4 lakhs today, but I want to do it 10 years from now. But it will certainly not cost you 4, it will cost you more. How much more? If it's 10 years ahead, you multiply it into 2 times. Okay? If it is 20 years away, you multiply it into 4 times. And if it's 30 years away, you multiply into 8 times. If inflation is growing at 7% every year, this is the thumb rule, which is very simple. Now, the other, when you're trying to monetize your goal, you also need to see there are some goals which are very important goals in one's life, child's education, which is the most important, because that's the most important investment one can do, trying to get his child educated, and you can't go wrong with it. Inflation is very high there. So you need to factor in an additional buffer. Okay, instead of multiplying it into 2 times, you have to multiply it into 2.5 times and 5 times for 10 and 20 years.
I've seen my family business and I'm already a part of my father's business. So should I have my own goals, or what should I do? What would you suggest?
Right. So Sabah, it's valid that you must be really young. What's your age, Sabah?
I'm 19.
19 years old. So you're really young. And like you rightly pointed out, you could be a part of somebody else's goal itself because you've not actually been old enough to take care of yourself completely, maybe. So do people who are actually a part of somebody else's goal need to have their own goals? Yes. Because, see, your dad and your parents, your mom and dad and your family business would have taken care of the very important things of life, like your education, your marriage, maybe. But it wouldn't have thought beyond that, right? A human's requirements are beyond just getting married and educated, right? So they have just fixed 2 things for you, but the rest of them for you to fish for yourself. So you'll have to plan and start early for those whole things which are not covered. There are only 2 things which are covered.
Feroz, I have more of a practical question to ask you. If I have multiple goals which are running at the same time, you know, it's not very easy. Sometimes I may get tempted to, you know, sort of dip into savings because an emergency has come up. So do you suppose that to be able to, you know, follow my goals through, should I have separate bank accounts? I mean, how do I keep each goal separate from the other?
See, ideally, yeah, you're right. If there are multiple goals and you're saving for multiple goals, can you actually have them together? In my opinion, you can have them together all the time, but you will have to have a reporting mechanism to yourself and a tracking mechanism where you allocate certain kitties of investments to certain goals, right? The short-term goals might have those FDs allocated to them. I think it's very important for you to actually segregate them and still have them together when you actually report them, because you can't keep separate bank accounts and then you actually lose track of them. Now comes the question, like you said, I suddenly get tempted to use one portion of money for something else. Or if there's something suddenly comes up, like Vinod also was saying in his previous question, what should you do when you've actually collected money? You should never disturb your personal finance. What you should do is, today the world, at least is so, financial world is evolved enough that you can borrow. Short-term borrowings on your investments is very easily and very quickly possible, and the rates at which you could borrow also is very nominal, right? It's very reasonable. So for example, I was planning for a goal and I suddenly had a very large requirement of money. But I would not disturb my entire 20-30 years of plan which I've put together. I would rather go and borrow the money, and I used it for about 8 months and I repaid that loan. So it only sidetracked me for a little extent of 1-2%. Right. So I think you should not disturb your goal, but you should have them segregated but reported together. I think that will be something which is most sensible to do when you're trying to plan your finance.
And it actually makes sense, but viewers, just a note to you, Feroz kept referring to a world tour as one of your goals. Do not borrow for that, Feroz. I hope I have your permission to say that. But anyway, we need to take a very quick break. We'll come back in a bit. There's lots more lined up on the other side. We'll tell you how you can actually go about fulfilling all the goals that we've just set out. Stay with us. We'll be back in a bit.